Hello. Hi. Hi, Mary Jo. Hi, Darlyn. How are you? So, I think I gave away my painting that I had the snow globe on. So the painting, the snow globe was easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy. It's easy enough for me to teach without looking at the picture. And I probably would have turned the snow globe away from the camera anyway when we were going to paint the globe part of it. So, yeah, so yes, so hopefully we will have the globe kind of, um, what am I saying? Yes, so the globe part, I would have turned it away anyway. So I want you guys to watch me. Now, one thing I did not do in that globe was put snow inside the globe. And, well, easy enough for me to teach, Rhonda. Sorry. Easy enough for me to teach because I'm used to that concept of the refraction and reflection of the light. And it's the same concept as if anybody painted the ladybug with me with the drops of water. So it's the same concept as the drops of water on there. The barn and the trees are going to be much more simplified. We're just going to do like 3 little evergreens and the barn inside once when we finish kind of the like sorry yeah so when we get that inside the the globe. But what I did not do was the snow splatter inside the globe, and I should have done that. And I just thought of it, and well, I didn't just think of it, but just thought of it, and we're going to reverse. So we just need to reverse engineer that. We like reverse engineer the splatter. So what I want to do, you need a circle, some kind of a circle to make like a nice globe. So usually I don't let you trace. However, today, yes, I will, because to get a circle is tricky. I'm going to use, this is a 9 by 12 piece of paper, piece of watercolor paper. I'm using the rough side. Sometimes you'll find that depending on the brand you're using, it will have a smooth side and a rough side. It's 140-pound weight, and or whatever, 300 grams if you're in the metric system. And so I typically use the rough side. So in the watercolor world, we call that the tooth of the paper. So cold press will have a nice tooth. I like the rough side. I like a good tooth because I find it absorbs more pigment. You also get a little bit of texture. Depending on the brand, the texture is a little bit different. I'm not so fond of a uniform texture. This one is by Canson. I keep going back to Canson. I've bought many different watercolor papers, and I keep going back to Canson for its middle of the road price, decent quality, and I like the way the tooth is. It's a bit of a granular, so it's cold pressed, so it has a tooth. Hot press won't have a tooth. It'll be a little more smooth. Acid free, obviously, because you want it to be archival. You want your paintings to last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever into eternity. And I plan on bringing all of mine to my funeral and having everybody fight over them. So that'll be good. And I just think that's funny. I know I have a warped sense of humor. So I'm using this. This is 9 by 12. So I'm using this for my globe. Remember, you're gonna have a stand on it. I might. I don't know. I think it's good. Although, I might go a bit bigger I'd go a bit bigger, especially because, I mean, the main focus is the globe. So I think I'm going to use that paper plate for my globe. I'm going to go up a little higher because I do want a stand. So I'm going to have a bit of a wooden stand here. We're going to do the stand first. Now, you can trace this with a little bit of pencil. Okay, very, very, very light. So first of all, you're going to trace that. And for the splatter at the end, because we want it to be snowing, just going to have a scrap piece of paper, which I have a nice scrap piece of paper here. I don't know where I got this scrap piece of paper, but and I am going to trace the same circle and then cut it out. Okay, so I'm going to cut out the circle and then put that piece of paper on top and tape it. Like, you can tape it down or just leave it down and then splatter. So it goes inside the snow globe. Okay, because of course somebody just shook it up and that makes it more fun. So I am going to use the oh shoot, I'm going to use a pencil. I hate to use a pencil, but it might go a bit too dark if I use the watercolor. So hopefully you can see the pencil online. But you don't really need to see it too much. You just need to know where it is. So I'm going to remember to go up a little higher, and so that we have room for the stand. You don't want to go too high, but you don't want to go too low. You don't want empty space up here, which is why I'm choosing to make the globe nice and big. Also, you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to hold this down for a second so I can trace it. And I mean, fairly centered right to left, but then up and down, you want it a bit higher. Very, very, very light with the pencil. You can barely see my pencil. And I am going to go over this with a little hint of black watercolor. Just because, so you can see it better. Just because, because. And what I am going to do is water down my black a little. So I'm just going to use a scrap piece. This already had some kind of black gray on there. So I'm going to water it down a little bit just so people can see it. You only need your guidelines to see. Here's a pencil mark. You only need to see yours. I don't need to see it from space. You do not need to go dark, but I'm going dark so you can see it. So you can see mine better. I'm ruining mine so you can, have a nice have a really nice painting. So this is just my round brush, and I have my wet ice cube tray that I keep all my paints in. And I'm going to pick up some of the black. And see, I've just picked up a little bit of the black. And I'm putting some water in it. Okay. A little bit of water in it. I'm just going to pick up the black with my brush. Pick up the water with my brush. See, I'm not stirring. There's black floating around in there because I'm just dipping. And I'm going to show you. So you see I've got this puddle. As soon as I start adding water to it, it's hardly any black at all. I'm just going to roll it off my brush a little. You see, if I carry some of that black through, and if I put some on a scrap piece of paper, oops. See, that's hardly any black. Once you kind of drag it out and put light through it, that's hardly any black. And I'm going to go very, very faint with it But it just looks really dark when it's in a puddle. That's what I'm saying. So as soon as we put the light through, it's fine. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that puddle, and I'm going to I'm going to brace my pinky, just putting my pinky down, and I'm just using the tip. Oops, I need to concentrate, or I'm going to keep wiggling. And there we go. You have a round, if you use your wrist from inside to out, you have a nice round bit, but just make sure that you're not putting much pressure. I'm just using the tip of my number 10. And I just keep turning my painting. Just so that I can use from inside my wrist to outside. There we go. Simple. So now you can see it. I don't need to see yours from space. When I send in my Paint with Janet drone into your paint studio, I don't need to see it. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to, with my scrap piece of paper, you don't need this piece of paper for later, so you can just use a scrap piece, and I am going to trace that same one in case I forget what, I'm going to do it now in case I forget what size I'm using. I could have been using something else to make it. And then you'll need scissors to cut that out with. Okay, so I got my scrap piece for later. I'm gonna put that aside. That's for splatter. Okay, and you are gonna need a little bit of a separate area to use black with anyway, because we are going to be using black. The actual glass makes a shadow inside the globe. So we have all this stuff going on in the globe. And we have like inside, outside. Inside, outside shadows are different. So we will need watered down black. If you have Payne's Gray in your little toolkit, that's even better. However, most people only have black, so I'm going to use black. Payne's Gray actually does not have black in it. It's the best when using watercolor because black will kind of kill watercolor. It kills light because it's the absence of light. Okay, I'm going to just put this fine brush away. And now, and I'm going to do examples, separate examples of inside the globe on other paper. So once we get there, but first we want to make the stand. I want some wood colors. Okay, I'm going to bring you down here. I'm going to bring you down. Look way down. The Friendly Giant. Look way up. The Friendly Giant. Friendly Giant is Canadian. I'm from Canada. It's a Canadian little PBS thing. So I want like a wood base. This little bit is like burnt sienna. It has other colors a little bit mixed in with it. Some of the green got in there, but that's okay. It just creates different colors. So sometimes I want to see differences in different kind of tones and color without over mixing them. So you'll notice my palette is super messy down here. I have greens, and you'll see sometimes if I've got a snippet of orange that kind of flaked off, like here, I'll stick that in my green, especially the earthy green. So I have one that's a little bit brighter green that I might use for like Christmas trees like Christmas tree decorations. And I might even use a little blue. And that just, so any of these other colors gives me a more earthy tone. So this is really, I'm just going to show you kind of what color it looks like. See? I just kind of barely dipped in it. I didn't stir it. It's got some different kind of colors through it. It's like burnt sienna or cinnamon. Sometimes it can be called red oxide, which is sort of the oxidization of that. Now that's pretty thin because it's got a lot of water in it. Then I've also got raw umber, or burnt umber, sorry. Burnt umber. That's giving me a little bit of a deeper color. So this is totally your choice. I'm actually going to use kind of a little bit of both, just because I find one is like a bit deeper in color, like a shadow color. The deeper the color, it's more blue in it. These have all the colors. If you've done color theory with me or anything, these have all the colors. All of the soft ones have all the colors. And up we go. So I'm going to use a combination of those. I want to have my wood a little bit on the red side, so I might even add a little bit of the red that I'm going to use for my barn, just because I'm going to have that little barn in there. So I want to maybe bring in some red here because everything else is going to be different colors. Oh, I forgot. We want to do the very, very, very background with water, and I'm going to use a little bit of purple and blue, just because sometimes when things are so wintry, I like a little purple in the sky. So sometimes that happens. When I find when it's really super cold, I tend to have a lot, like there tends to be a lot of purple in the sky. We get these crisp, cold days, like everything just kind of stands so still. I find there's a lot of purple in the sky. I sort of see it in there. And so what I want to do is, I've just cleaned a little bit of that brown off my brush, although a little bit of brown wouldn't hurt anything. Now my water's gone a little bit dirty. That is nothing, absolutely nothing in pigment wise. So I'm going to use that same water. And the reason why you're not, like, I might reactivate this black. I'm not worried about that because it's so faint. So you only have pencil, so you won't reactivate it. Okay, so I'm going to do a few streaks of just water back and forth. Straight back and forth, not arcing, like not arcing with your wrist or your elbow. Using your shoulder, you're going to do a few streaks straight back and forth, right across the whole picture of water. Okay, back and forth, more water, back and forth, more water, back and forth, more water, back and forth, more water. Now, if I had gone back over and over and over again, I would have reactivated that black. Okay, then I want to take a little bit of my purple. I'm just going to kind of dip in a little bit of the purple. And you see, it's sort of bright purple, but it's blending with the water. It's sort of thinning out with the water. Then I'm going to add a little bit more water and get those streaks kind of blending through the paper. I know a lot of you love to overblend, so this is your chance. Usually I stop you. I'm going to go back and forth. That's nice and bold in that one spot. I'm going to catch the drip. You're painting flat. I'm painting kind of right side up. So I'm just liking these little bits of purple. And I'm going to put a little tiny bit of blue in there. I am going to have a little bit deeper purple. Oops. Down lower, and that's going to blend in with those browns. I've got a few drips that are going to start, but I'm not worried about those. And you want to have your streaks going right out to the side. People tend to stay in the middle. You have use your entire paper. Then I'm going to use a little bit of blue. Not sure which blue I'm going to use. So I have a set of blue that's a little bit more, less phthalo blue and more ultramarine. And then I have one that's like phthalo and Prussian. I find phthalo and Prussian, depending on the dye lot and depending on your brand, tend to be very similar, whereas cobalt and ultramarine tend to be a little bit less teal. But so I'm just dipping in, I have no idea, because I tend to kind of mix my blues a little. That's heavy blue, so I'm going to just bring some of that down here. And I don't want too much blue in the sky. I'm kind of loving the purple. So I'm going to over blend that a little bit with a bit of water, and it's going to soften out that blue. And I might take a little bit more blue. I'm just straight up grabbing a little tiny bit of blue. Okay, so when I mean grab your paint, and when I'm painting with watercolors in person, I notice people do this. When I say one dip, like one just touch the paint, what they'll do is they'll do dip, dip. And I'm like, oh my God, now you've got major pigment load. Okay, that's not cool. Okay, so major pigment load, we don't want. I'm going to catch some of these drips a little bit of scrap toilet paper here. So I'm going to streak that across. I'm going to catch some of the drips. You shouldn't have to do this. So I want this nice and streaky. And you could have some whiter streaks. So you see, I even washed that and it still had quite a lot of pigment load on there. And I just wanted a little bit more in the corner and up there. I don't mind a little bit of white showing there. Although my brush went a little, or no, my toilet paper went a little off kilter and it didn't go back and forth, it went up and down. So I just smoothed that out with my finger. That's all I did. Okay. Now, that was easy, right? Right, Rhonda? Now what I'm going to do is definitely do my stand. Okay, so I want my stand to go narrow to wide. Okay, this is fairly centered, so my stand is going to be centered. Okay, so I'm going to take that raw or burnt sienna and like the cinnamon red color. One time I said grab the cinnamon and somebody grabbed this bright red, like as in cinnamon hearts, the candy. cinnamon is that brownish red, right? Okay, so here I'm just giving myself guidelines. That's all. You're allowed to give yourself guidelines. They're going to be kind of mushy guidelines because we have the wet background. That's fine. Then what we want to do is have this narrower up here. I need to center a bit. So we only need to have it narrow, fit like not too far, just so enough that the this dips down into it. Okay. So like I'm going to make that, because I'm going to cover it, I'm going to make this part a little bolder of my glass. So this is the bottom of the glass. Okay, so pay attention here. So I could make that bolder because it's going to be covered. And my hand wiggled because I tried to do the smile instead of doing the upside down curve. That's okay because it's going to be covered. So what happens if, let me get a scrap piece of paper here. I'm going to show you with a marker. If we had our bowl, okay, That's the bottom of the bowl of the globe, the bowl of the globe. And we have the stand like that. We need the stand to grab the bowl. Otherwise, it would just fall off. Okay? And this looks awkward because it's going up on the side of the bowl. And then if we had it going like this in front here, that doesn't make any sense because if the stand is going up this high on the side, when it comes at you, it's also going to go high because the globe has to sit inside it. Okay, so, but it's also curved because everything's rounded. This might have a softer curve. See how it's a slightly different curve? We have sort of a curve like that and a curve like that. Okay, we're going to cut off this curve and make it still a curve, but we're actually cutting off some of that. So it can't go straight across because our bottom is going to be curvy. We won't see the bottom because it's off the page because our focal point is on the inside here. Okay, so it's like a sliver of a waxing moon. Okay, first stain. So it's still curvy. But the curve is kind of matching this. Okay. Hopefully we got that. So that's why I can go dark, because I'm actually going to, go over that a bit. So I'm going to get a bit more like heavy of my red brown. I'm going to bring it up a little bit higher on the side, just using this same big brush. This is a 1-inch flat, what is it? It's a 1-inch flat filbert, because I have lots of filberts, because I bought lots of them for watercolors. They were just in the dollar store. You can use a flat brush, works the same as a filbert, but I just did my guidelines like that. Then I am going to, I just need to hold it to me to center it. There we go. And I'm going to cut off that little bit, and just still curving, but not quite curving like that. And you see my black is going to kind of blend in with my brown. I'm going to over blend that just so that it's going to, so it can be like a shadow too. Okay, so the stand, maybe it goes like that. And then maybe, so if you do like a ring around the stand, then all these rings, the curve kind of matches, right? So let's say I want to do, maybe I want to bulb it out a bit more on the side. And I'm going to still kind of match that very soft curve. It's not going straight. So sometimes these snow globes can be rather heavy for the base. So you want a good solid base. Okay, so this is my start. And I'm going to go a bit. Maybe it's like wooden kind of rings. So it does go wider, and then maybe it might go a bit straight, like not quite so wide as we go. And then the base might be. So still, see how I'm still kind of softly curving. I'm not using a lot of pigment, and not yet. And I didn't outline anything. Maybe that's going to be, maybe it goes out wide and then a bit narrower, so it fits on the coffee table easier. I don't know. So the stem of your wine glass can get caught in there. I know, I got to get into Wine Wednesday again. I've been having so much trouble having wine, and there's one organic wine I can drink that doesn't cause breathing problems, because if there's too much sulfites in them, and it's from California. And as much as I love California, we can no longer get it in our liquor store in Canada because of the boycotts. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get political. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, so each one of these rungs is rounded. So notice it's rounded. So halfway through is going to be a shadow. So the shadow kind of comes down this way. If you did a straight one, that's fine. You know, simplify your life. But so I'm going to use the darker brown, a little bit darker brown. Like, so that's from here upward. So you see the shadow is going to go. I'm going to hold my brush the thin way. Okay, see, I'm doing it the thin way, pulling it across, and then I'm going to bring it through with the fat way and bring that shadow upward. With watercolor, it's really easy to do that. It's nice. So it gives you a beautiful shadow. And so I showed you on that one, and it's a painting, not a photograph, so it doesn't have to be always even. Maybe with the wood turning, maybe your nephew did it, and it's not even. I don't know why I said that. My nephew did it. Could have been my son. Now this one, same thing. I'm gonna go the thin way, then the fat way, kind of through halfway, and I do want to round out that a bit so it kind of matches the rest. It also has a shadow from the glass above. Glass actually creates a shadow, surprisingly. So that's why I kind of blended that black into it. If your shadow's not flowing right, take the tiniest bit of water, meaning you break the surface of the water with just the tip of the brush, and then go back and do that nice shadow underneath. But see, I added water, so it kind of took some away. Now I'm going to go with that dark brown. I'm seeing some of that purple in there from the background, which is really, really pretty. And I am going back through here with the dark brown, then halfway up with it the fat way without adding any more pigment. And I might just bring a bit of shadow here. And it could create some shadow under each segment as well. But maybe it's sticking outward because you see how this is sticking outward. So it's actually catching the light. So you get that beautiful stuff. So if I forget to check the comments every once in a while, I will try and remember. I'm concentrating here. Let me see. Hi, Rhonda said, yep. Garnet Unicorn. Hi, Paint with Janet. Okay, who are you? I can't see you. Oh, are you? I can't see your picture. Who is Garnet Unicorn? Everybody has all these different kind of Paint with Janet, YouTube handles, I guess. Yeah, so. Yes, who are you? Paint, unicorn, Garnet Unicorn. I can't see the little picture, it's too tiny. I know there's a picture of you there, even though I've got my glasses on. Okay, so I'm liking that. Everything's not perfectly even, but it doesn't have to be. I can see a little bit of that purple through, which I kind of like. I could even, if I wanted to, add a tiny bit of purple. But careful, because it's going to be really, really dark, because purple is quite dark. Or I could even add a little red. Who knows? Could just kind of With my red, what I might do is just kind of dip in a little bit. And with the brush fairly dry, because I didn't wash it or anything like that, the brush is fairly dry. I'm just going to catch a little bit of red through, just kind of holding my brush on the surface, like kind of holding it back a bit, not putting pressure on it. And I might get a little bit of red through the wood color to bring in the red of the barn. So it was kind of, I can still see pigment on my brush, so I haven't taken much off. And you're just kind of skimming the surface of the paint. We are going to use white gouache afterward and bring in more highlights. Or if you're doing highlights on just the wood, you could use white watercolor. But we are going to use gouache because that's going to be the best snow. Now I'm going to put this brush in a little water. Okay, so what happens inside the globe? So we have inside and outside the globe, we have different shadows, okay? Inside the globe, we have refraction. Outside the globe, we have reflection. Okay? So we're going to do the refraction of light first, then we're going to paint inside the globe. Okay? So the inside, and then the inside of the globe follows the same rules as, just because it's a decoration on the inside, it's going to have its own shadows. It's separate from the globe itself. So it's going to have its own shadows, its own stuff. Okay. And so inside, outside, upside down, we're going to do the shadows from the glass. So just painting a design inside a globe does not make it a snow globe. It has to refract light, like a bubble, like a water droplet. Okay, I'm going to show you separately, again on a separate piece of paper. And how this happens. How on earth does this happen? It's magic. Okay. It's magic. This is just a scrap piece, and I'm going to use the marker on this one. I'm going to do the marker, then I'm going to do an example on a scrap piece of watercolor paper. Then we're going to do it together because this does not take long. So I want you to concentrate on your plan of action first before doing the actual painting. Okay, so this is your bubble. Okay, so I'm using a Sharpie so everyone can see really well. There's an imaginary line. So here, the light is coming from above. Maybe it's sitting under a Christmas tree. The light's coming from above. So our halfway line, we have an imaginary line. This is an imaginary line. Just imagine it. Ooh. Imagine all the people. Don't get me singing. Okay. Imaginary line. Inside, what's happening? Refraction. So we get a shadow coming from this imaginary line, kind of thing, downward. Okay, that's why we're going to really thin our black paint. So we have an imaginary shadow coming here. Now what it does not do is this. Let's say this is our imaginary line. It does not do this. Okay, it does not get dark here. It goes, and then it goes lighter, I'm just going to do less lines for the light, and then it goes even lighter. And it doesn't cross the line. Okay? So it goes light to dark and dark to light that way, not this way. It follows the imaginary line. It goes perpendicular to the imaginary line, our shadows. Okay? And it does not cross the imaginary line, but it goes right to that. So this glass is creating a shadow on here. The brightest part is here. Okay? And it is very white. Even the glass is very white here. Okay? The glass itself is really white. The glass itself up here can be a little bit shadowed. Very little. Okay? So I'm going to show you with paint, because the paint, especially watercolor paint, is going to give us this really soft effect. And I'm just going to give myself a little outline of a circle so you can see the circle on the scrap piece of paper. It's a scrap piece of watercolor paper, so it will behave just like your paper. And getting some tape on there so it doesn't fall off. Oops. Okay, so I just got a really quick pencil mark on there. You don't have to see the pencil mark right now. You're still watching. You're still watching. Also, I want my soft, watery. See, as it's drying, you can hardly see black because that got really, really watery. So you need just a separate mixing area. Typically use white. That's why palettes are white, just so you can see underneath. Because if you have it clear, you're going to get your mess. You're going to see under colors, which are going to affect it. Okay, so I have my my globe here. I'm just going to give it a better outline here. So I have my globe, and there's my stand. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is where my imaginary line is. You do not need to draw your imaginary line, but I'm going to give you an imaginary line just in case. I'm going to do it outside the imaginary. And there's also an imaginary line up here. So it goes, remember, dark to light this way, up and down, not around. Okay? Dark to light, up and down. So dark to very light. So DL, on the DL, on the down low. Okay? Dark to light, because the glass is shadowing under it. And I'm going to use this big brush, surprisingly. Okay. I'm just going to give it a good wash. There's it looks like a little bit purplish, brownish water. That's not going to affect the black. I'm going to bring you back down here. Okay. And show you. So I have a lot of water in there. Lots of water in my black area. So see, and then do a little taste test. See, there's hardly any black on that. And the thinner I take it, there's hardly anything. Okay. Up we go. And so I'm going to start up here. And I'm just going to, now each one of my brush strokes is, one brush stroke is going to follow this way. One, as we go inward, down that way, right over top of your guidelines, over top of your pencil marks. Get more water, and pull down. Now I've got kind of some drippies, and you see it's gone dark to light, and I've lost a little bit of the dark up here. So I'm going to tap in a bit here, but I'm up, straight up. So I am going to catch that with some toilet paper or some paper towel. Where my toilet paper went. But yours shouldn't do that because you are painting flat. Okay, you're painting flat. So if it did drip, I would actually take the paper and push it back in. See, I can just push it back in. So it's so pale, so pale. You don't want to see that hard outline. I gave you a hard outline. I'm going to mess that up just so you can see where I'm going. And you see I'm just pushing with my toilet paper back up, or paper towel. You don't want to overdo that. And the brush strokes follow the curve. Okay? See how soft that is? You are going to see brush strokes in it, but we also have another background color, so it's fine. And we didn't cross the imaginary line. Okay? It's very little, so let's go. Let's go for broke. Go for gold. Okay, I'm going to bring this up a bit higher. And Melanie from Pennsylvania. Okay, she's the Garnet Unicorn. Okay, so here we go into my black, very watery black. Do your taste test. Do your taste test, because I'm going for it. I'm going for it. Imaginary line, and so you see, I've got it fairly concentrated up here. You're working flat, so you don't have to worry about drips. And I'm just gently starting to pull my paint downward. Then, as my brush empties from pigment, it's going to go paler, not past the imaginary line. I'm seeing the brush strokes in there, and that's okay. This is extremely pale, so I'm actually going to get a tiny bit of water, and as I go, I'm going to refresh some of those brush strokes. And because I have a straight across thing, I can kind of eyeball my imaginary line. And I'm going to take a little tiny bit more water, meaning I just break the surface. And this is so subtle, so subtle. And you don't see that rim of black. Okay, you only can see your pencil mark, which is pale, 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 and you just go right over that pencil mark. The darkest part is at the top, and the lightest part is here, and it's extremely subtle. If it's too dark, take some paper towel because it will absorb lots, and go back up with it. Okay, so inside, the glass creates a shadow. Outside, and then the glass is refracting the light and bending it. And then it's reflecting off this part of the glass underneath. So we will have white coming up. You can use white watercolor or white gouache for this. I'm going to use a little white watercolor because I don't have my gouache squeezed out yet. And I'll show, and it just shows you the difference too. So this is my white watercolor. It's really translucent, so you can use a translucent white for the refraction. You want to use gouache for reflection. Refraction is fine. So I'm going to rinse off any of the gray. And even though my water still got some pigment in it, that's hardly anything. It's not going to affect my watercolor. I also keep back a couple of little cups for if I want to do white. Okay. Like afterward, if I want white, which is going to be for the splatter, the snow splatter, which is always good. And so I'm not having to run to the sink. So I rinse that off, and I'm bringing you back down. So white watercolor is typically called China white or zinc mixing white or zinc white. So that means it's very translucent. It does not give you good coverage if you want like snow. Okay. So I'm just squeezing out a little bit. Now I tend to, if I squeezed out too much white, I just stick it in my little gouache bucket. It's not really a bucket. It's just a little applesauce container that I keep my gouache in. And then I refurbish it. See, I've just put water on to let it soak in. It takes a little while to soak in a bit more. I'll explain that about the gouache when I get to the gouache. Okay? So we'll just talk about gouache in a bit. That'll make you stick around. Oh, the gouache surprise. So now this is where I'm really not looking forward to having a dark. This is also where gouache would come in handy. I don't want a dark thing here. So at the halfway mark, the glass changes color. Okay, at the halfway mark. So the glass can have a little bit of black in the actual glass itself. This is why I said don't do this. So this should actually, see how I'm literally painting over that with some white. You don't want to see your pencil marks. You actually want to see your white. So if you did a dark pencil mark, you're going to use white gouache for the rim after. But we also have snow inside the globe, which we're going to use the white gouache for. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white, and actually quite a lot of the white, because this is translucent, because it's watercolor white. And I am going to, this side is really white, and I'm going right over top, and then I'm pulling up just like I did to the halfway point. Okay. And I do want to cover. Now you see that doesn't cover much because it's too translucent. Okay. So gouache will cover it. But I'm going to deal with that when I get my gouache out. Because right now I just want the sort of soft white inside, because I want it translucent. Okay, so this is the inside. I just needed a bit more white. So you can see it's economical to buy the gouache, because you would go through a ton of your white trying to get it to be opaque and not translucent. So you see I've got a good load on there. And I'm kind of going across with the white a bit. So I want quite a lot of white, heavy white load. And I'm going to dip a little bit in water because my brush is fairly dry, and kind of coming up the sides and upward with that little bit of water to create that translucent effect. And I'm going to drip. So I don't want to. So you'll see the brush stroke a little bit in that white. And you're going just not past the imaginary line. So you can actually see the difference with your background compared to, now we have kind of refreshed the background, so that's why you don't want to overdo this. You don't want to overdo it, because then you're just going to get a light lilac purple. So you can kind of see that it's created a difference between the background from here and here. It's gone a bit lighter in color. So you just don't want to ignite that. And I'm going straight up through the front, and then it curves. It follows the curvature of the thing. And remember, I am going to go over my lines with white because it should be white all through to the halfway point, but not white up here. Okay, we don't want to see a hard outline because there is no hard outline in glass. It's just reflection of light. There we go. Now we're going to do the inside of the decoration. So, I mean, really, this is so simple. It's just the not overdoing it that's really, really hard, and keeping that black really subtle. I mean, if you've got black watercolor, you're really going to use a lot less watercolor. In fact, because I use so much, I end up with so much paint kind of left over when I buy a pack, because I always buy a pack of 24. It's cheaper than buying it by the individual packs. And I end up with a lot of the dark colors. And I give them away to people sometimes so I end up with a lot of the black, and I give them away for people to practice. So I end up with, and then also I end up with a lot of white because I do use gouache for when I have crowds, and I get a lot of blue left over. So I give away a lot of blue for people to practice at home. When I do an in-person class, I'll say, okay, practice with the blue because that gives you the idea of light and dark too, because it's a rich pigment. And it does a hostile takeover. So here we go. Let's rock and roll. You might get a little water staining in here. That's fine because it's watercolor. It's allowed to, you know. And now I'm done with the big brush a little bit. Not really. I'm tricking you. Okay. Now I am going to I'm going to get the snow. So we have our little barn. I don't remember if we did the red barn with me last time. You don't want to add red until the very, very, very end. So I do want to get some white snow in there. Okay. And I'm going to use my gouache for that. So white gouache comes out rather thick. Okay. So even if I've got some crusties on here, like little crusties, I throw that in my little pot of white gouache. So I don't know if you can see this. Gouache is water soluble and water based, just like watercolor, but it's got talc in it. It's also made, like, what stops it from drying out is gum arabic. Gum arabic. So when I add water, I don't know if you can see the difference in tone of the water. It's got a yellowish brownish tinge. That's the gum arabic kind of coming out. So when I put some water in there like that, just to kind of soak it, I will actually pour that water out. I don't like, it's not going to affect it, but I just like it to be a little more whiter. So sometimes it takes a minute for the gouache to reconstitute. So you can see my big lump in there. And it's really hard. Like, it's really hard. So I'm actually going to add a bit more water to it. Some nice white water, and let it soak. And I'm going to add some fresh gouache. So if you really wanted to use your gouache, because it gets so thick, then you really, if you have like some that you've saved, just add in hot tap water and let it sit for a bit, and then give it a good stir before you need to use it, because it is really hard, as you saw from my, like, I just got hardly anything from that. And So I'm actually going to add in, now I put a little bit of water in there, that just helps my gouache flow. And you can see it's going to come out like toothpaste. You can actually see it's got substance, like when it comes out of the tube like that. And I'm going to use the same brush. Sometimes if I've got leftover white watercolor, I'll just stick it in with the gouache. Doesn't matter too much because the talc takes over. And if you've got some crusty bits, just add it in there too, because that'll soften up too from your tube. So it's cheaper to buy gouache than one tube of watercolor, like just one tube. Because gouache is about, this is about $17 Canadian. It's by PBO. PBO is a French company, so it's available all over the world and on Amazon and in most stores, most art stores. I don't know which stores you have in the States, or I know there's some Europeans and some Aussies that watch me too. It's the next morning for them usually. They're having coffee. But PBO, I also use PBO watercolors. There's my PBO watercolors. So you can see how much of a savings it is if you're using the difference in size. Okay. So, and if I'm doing big crowds, I need lots of white. Plus, the white gouache is opaque. Watercolor is too translucent. Usually it's called, this one is called, I can't remember the color. So usually it's titanium white or ultra white or whatever, and it gets good coverage because it has talc in it. Talc is chalk, just like on a chalkboard. So you can't, like dark brown, dark black or green chalkboard, you can see the chalk on top. So that's why. So I'm going to use my white gouache. I'm actually going to kind of pick it up thick. The little tiny bit of water that I put in there is going to help it flow a bit. So because there's some kind of snow in the background, I'm going to have my barn here and a green here and a green tree here. Two little green trees. And I'm going to start to put, this is on the inside. This is on the inside. And I'm going to put my snow in there. Just kind of rolling my brush around. So this would look not so flat. It would kind of go up a little bit at the back. So I'm going to take that little bit of water that I had in there, in that little cup. I didn't stir it because I want different textures. So it would kind of go up and back. Okay, and then down from how we're seeing it, from how we're seeing that snow. But it's also made of resin. So inside it's made of resin. So it's quite a thick resin. And I'm going to add more as I go. See, sort of, I got this sort of, whoops, slopey thing. And I'm going to filling in my snow. Okay. Right down to the bottom. And I'm just kind of rolling my brush around in the snow because I like this poly resin stuff that would be made, the decorations would be made of, wouldn't be perfectly smooth because it's snow and snow drifts. So this is in general the shape of where my snow is my snow is like this. Where is my marker? So in general, because you sort of have a background, the way our perspective is going, see there's like a little background. This looks like a funny kid with a funny hairdo. So it's kind of like that, the background. So kind of like seed pod. And it's hard to tell. Also, you can exaggerate color a little bit with the snow, okay? Because it is a decoration. what I'm going to do is take what's on here and I'm going to dip into my blue. I'm going to dip one dip straight into my blue. And you see I've got a pretty high pigment load on there now. I'm going to create shadows with the blue down below. So the resin comes up against the glass. So the resin creates a shadow. Okay? It creates a shadow in there. So I'm just going to kind of give a few kind of dots of the blue. A few dots. You don't want to blend this in because you're going to end up with just pale blue because it's going to mix in there. And then a few kind of dots in the back. Okay, and I'm still working with this big brush. So there's a few dots in the back. The snow drifts are going to come up to here. Okay, so this is the shadow in the snow. And now I am going to wash off the blue. Oh no. Actually, no, I'm not going to wash it off. I'm just going to pull it off because I don't want to wet. I don't want to wet it, and I want to keep that blue, or I want to keep the gouache on there. Let's see, I'm just going to pull it off. So it's not much at all. So you see, going over and over, it just makes pale blue. Okay, so a little bit of blue near the, so this is the back of the snow. This is under the snow. So I'm going to take more gouache, straight up kind of thing, and kind of go over that shadow without overdoing it. Whoops. If you go over your thing, I just kind of pushed it with my nail and it went back without overdoing it, right up to the edge. And again, without overdoing this, because we want to still see some dark and light of the blue. We don't want to see it just pale blue. Okay. And the same at the back. So we're just kind of rolling our brush around at the back a little bit. And so it's like we've got these two tones of blue through. It's a little much, so I'm going to just wipe it off. Then we're going to start to do our little decorations. I'm going to put this brush in water now. If you have white gouache on it, it tends to get gunked up and dries out fast, but hot soapy water will get it off. Now I'm going to switch over to my number 10, because I'm a 10. My number 10. And remember I said I wanted to get, I just need to fix this little bit of brown here, under here. So I'm going to bring a little bit of dark brown in there after. Okay, but it's also a painting, so you don't have to be too fussy. Okay, and now I did say that I wanted white lines here at the bottom, like from the imaginary line down. I don't want to see that gray. White gouache is going to cover that. So I'm going to use my number 10 and see, I'm going to get this gouache. And there is no English term for gouache. Gouache is gouache is gouache. Gouache. G-O-U-A. So in French is gouache. O-U-A. Gouache. Not just gouache. Not just gouache. Gouache is fun to say. You gotta admit. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that. And I'm gonna go over, just going over my lines here with white gouache. These ones are paler. Right up to, and I'm just using the tip of my brush right up to the imaginary line. Barely touching. I'm just fading that out. I just need it to face me for a second, sorry. But I already showed you what I'm doing. fading out like right over top of that line. I just don't want to see that gray line. It's going to be right up to the imaginary line. It goes white. Next time you look at pictures of bubbles. Also, make sure it's a good artist that understands the refraction if you're looking at that. And you can kind of blur the line a little bit with your finger where the imaginary line is. So it's soft. Okay? Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Now we want to get nice bright green for the trees and our barn. Okay? So I want to do, I think I want to do the barn first just to get it set up, because then we can do the trees after and let the barn kind of settle, because sometimes you need to let red settle. And we want to go small. So I'm going to show everyone how we did that barn. I still have my original, my OG here. I'm going to use, because I want to go really small in here, I am going to use my 10. So I am going to wash the gouache off, because I just don't want that much. And then I'm just going to dry my brush a little bit. I just don't want it super wet. Okay. So this is the way we did the barn. I'm going to show you the way we do it. So we leave spots for the snowdrifts. Okay, we leave spots for the snowdrifts. And we're going to pick up a lot of white because we have that background snow in there. Okay. And so you can choose your reds. So I'm going to do another one up here, just kind of to show you. Okay. So it's just going to be a bit smaller, and you can see that happening before your very eyes. Oops. And you can use whatever. You can use cinnamon heart color red. You can use whatever red you want. So I'm still using my 10. I haven't switched. You really don't need to use super fine paints. Okay. So I want to get the peak where I want the peak. I'm just dotting out the peak. Okay. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer. And I'm going to dot out the peak. Okay. Then the milk house. So the peak of the barn is where the big barn door is. And then we have the milk house, which is kind of goes slightly off to a slant and then goes down. Okay. So now what we need to do, I'm going to go darker with my dots. You don't have to. I just really want you to see them because this is small. Okay. I'm going darker. And then what we're going to do is dot out where we want our snowdrifts. You want to keep it negative, like a negative space kind of thing. And I want a nice snowdrift here. I'm going to dot out my snowdrifts, because if you don't dot out your snowdrifts, you're going to go down too far. Okay. Then what we're going to do is dip in your red. One brush stroke down. Now I've got a lot of red on there. One brush stroke down. Back here, hanging onto your brush. Not like this. If you were like this, you've got too much pressure on your brush. You're going to get heavy, heavy lines. So dip in your red choice, and from the top of the peak, come down. Okay, I'm going to dip in more red and just kind of let it float off the paper, off the page. So you see, I'm just going down, not past my drifts. Now it's not perfect stripes. Some of these stripes are touching each other. Okay, some are touching each other. And That's it right now. That's all for right now. Then I'm going to go into a little bit, I'm not washing my brush. I'm going to go into a deep brown color. Okay. Or you could use that cinnamon color, whichever color you want your barn to be. And at the peak of the barn, I'm going to create little touches of shadows with that dark brown. See, I'm just kind of pulling down on my brush because the snow on top of the barn is going to create these little shadows. Now what I'm going to do, if I have excess shadow color on there, which I do, I'm just going to wipe it off. See, I've just got a little bit on the tip of my brush because I didn't dip. I just touched. One touch of the paint gives you tons of pigment with watercolor. Okay, then I'm going to dip this brush in water. A little bit of water, little bit, breaking the surface tension of the water, and I'm going to pull down to my snow with the water, and you see kind of in between or over top of the other, and you see you're going to get this lovely gradation of barn board looking stuff. This is really small and it's a little bit darker, but you can see just that little bit, it's giving you the light and the dark. If parts are a little dark, do take your water off, which is taking the pigment off, and pull back up a little bit. We're pulling down because the shadows come down, and just kind of pull up through. I'm going to just dip a little bit of water in there, but we're also going to have doors, and also you can add a little bit of white gouache if you want to on top of that and lighten it up. So very small. We're going to work small, and going back here. I want a brighter red than what my other barn was, just because it's a Christmas decoration. So you can take artistic license and go into these brilliant Christmassy reds. So the bottom, because the back of the snow is here, the bottom of my thing is here. The bottom of my barn is here. And probably it might be 3D. So the other side will have another barn. So you can look at it from both sides. So it might be two fronts of the barn, but we're not doing that right now. So I'm going to just, my peak can go above. Okay, I'm going to have my peak here because I'm going to have a big tree here and then two tiny trees here. So right just above the back of the snow, I'm dotting out my peak. It's pretty much almost center, but because the milk house goes out, so the cows are in here, and then the milk house stores like the big vats of milk. So then the milk truck comes in and gets them. But this is an abandoned barn. There's no cows. The cows went south for the winter. They're in Florida or Arizona, or maybe they're gambling in what do you call that gambling place? Las Vegas. I can't remember everything. Now there might be a drift coming across here, so it might not be going straight. Now be careful not to get pink in your snow. And we're going to have drifties coming up this way, and then we go downward. That's it. Okay. Loose grip on that brush, heavier pigment, and I'm going to come straight down. I'm going to show you on here, straight on, as in 90 degrees from my painting. Okay, I'm going to start at the peak. I'm going to bring some of these brush strokes downward. You don't have to complete them, okay? Don't go back over the brush strokes. You're not trying to make stripes. I'm going to get another batch of pigment because I want a bright red barn. I just dipped in there. Don't go over these because you're going to get pink, too much pink, because you got that white underbelly. And then I'm going right into my brown, taking that little bit on the tip of my brush in the brown. And I'm going to create the shadows because we're going to do the snow on top of the roof after, but there is a lot of shadow. It's heavy snow. So I'm just tapping in a little bit of that brown, just a little. Then I'm going to wipe off the brown, remember? I'm just wiping off the excess brown. I've still got some nice red under there. And it's okay if a little bit of that brown reaches, and then take the tiniest bit of water, break the meniscus, the surface tension, and pull down to the drift. One brush stroke through each one. Now, if you got it too light in certain colors, in certain parts, I want a deeper red. I want this a bright, bright Christmas red. So I'm going to go back with this bright Christmas red and kind of get some more. And going into the heavy, creamy part of my paint and getting some nice Christmas red in there. And I'm still going to follow the same brush stroke. Okay. And here we go. Because it went way too pink there. And I'm just going to tap that in and just leaving that bottom. I went a little bit too even, which is okay, but I wouldn't want to do that all the time. Then we're going to go into, but I'm not going to worry about that because we're not worried about the snow yet. Snow is going to cap off our burn. It looks a little bare, looks a little awkward. We can go in straight up into black. Take your pigment off and keep your brush fairly dry-ish. Go straight up into black. We do a little barn door. Very little, because it's a tiny, tiny little decoration. Little barn door and a little window above. Okay, black can get diluted from the white too. So you might need to re-dip in your black. Keep your black creamy so that it goes darker. And then the milk house also has a door. Maybe it's kind of covered in snow. So it's going, but this one needs to be wide because it has the tractor going in. You see, the other one's covered in snow. We're going to let that settle. And we're going to do our green tree. We're going to do like a reverse tree. We're going to do little spots of green, then fill it in with white. So we get lots of white. Remember, this is a decoration. We get the resin of the white snow. It's made from the heavy resin. And like on here, like here, we're going to do the like little squiggles of the green, then leave space for the white. Leave space for the white. Okay. So I'm going to show you here. Actually, I can just show you. It doesn't matter where I show you. Okay, I'll just show you down here. And so I want a nice, it doesn't have to be a natural green. It can be a really bright Kelly green or phthalo green, and even add a little bit of blue in there. So phthalo green tends toward teal, and which is always nice at Christmas. And you also have, just going to add a bit more. I want to empty this tube anyway, so I'm going to empty it. I don't do it, but I used to. I slice open your tube at the end, keep the cap on, fill it with water, and not fill it, but put a little bit of water in, then kind of give it a good shake, and then take the cap off and push it all out, and you'll get all this extra pigment because, again, we only need the tiniest bit of pigment. but I just don't do it anymore because I go through a lot. I go through a lot of paint. And so I just kind of put it in here. So I keep that one kind of natural and soft. See where I put the little orange fleck? And so they look kind of mossy. And then this one I put in there. And I might just pick up a little bit of phthalo blue as I go. I know I have the phthalo blue. I have that marked on my thing because I forget which blue's which. So if I dip a little bit of phthalo green in the phthalo blue, that's fine because it's like they're all kind of in the same genre. So I'm going in here into that phthalo blue or phthalo green that I put in, and I'm doing a little kind of up here. So you can give yourself a guideline if you want, but just kind of a dotted line, and make sure to have, so sometimes the boughs are coming down a bit more. Don't leave too much space in between because you remember you've got to fill that in with white, and you've already got white on there, so it's not going to be an overkill fill. So I'm just kind of tilting my brush down a little. Okay, and then leaving space. So it is what it is not. It is not this. It's not this. Because then you're leaving too much space. And then already, like what's nice about that, just kind of, and then we're going to do a tiny one, which is just going to be like, kind of like that. And don't try to do it too contrived, like that. Because that just doesn't look right. More like slightly more random within the triangle. Because boughs are coming at you as well. And not exactly the same shape. See, I've got different, like a thinner shape that's underneath and a thicker shape, a more triangular shape, that sort of thing. Okay. So we're leaving space for the white, and we'll do the white after. Okay. So this tree is going to be a bit taller than here, and it's going to come from the other side of the drift. Like it's going to come from in kind of here where I had that shadow. And then the two little trees are going to come here. Because maybe on the other side of the snow globe, it has two other little trees. But then this one's kind of in center. So I'm going to have it go up like this. So that's kind of where my guideline is going. Starting around the same spot as the barn. And I'm going to pretty creamy, heavy load of pigment here. And I'm kind of tilting the brush and just little kind of dabs in here, right over that guideline. Okay, don't leave. That was a guideline. It was not a stem. We don't see the trunk of the tree in the winter because it's so laden with boughs and snow. Okay, then little tiny ones over here. If you wanted to dip in a little bit of blue too, you just don't have to clean your brush if you wanted like a blue spruce. But I feel there's enough blue. But the phthalo green kind of has that blue tinge to it. So here, I'm just going to do some little tiny ones. One kind of close to the barn. So it's just kind of in a triangular shape. These little tiny kind of dots. And then here. And they will look like trees after. Okay. That's it. That's all. Easy peasy. We're still working inside the globe. I want to get rid of that green off here because I want to get that gouache nice and white. We're going back to gouache or change brushes. If you feel you're not going to get that green off, see, I'm giving it a really good scrub. And I'm really rubbing it against the bottom of my paint water. Notice the gouache, because that was really different colors. So the gouache has made it gray. So gouache is even powerful in the water itself. And because it will take over. This titanium white business is very white. And where's my little bit of paper towel here? I had a tiny bit of paper towel because I wanted to get off any excess water because I want to use my gouache fairly thick. And now I want to go into the trees first with my heavy gouache. Heavy gouache. Kind of see how thick it is? I literally scooped it and it's going kind of on top of the above the green, not on top of the green, above the green, like not on top of the paint itself, on top of the tree part, on top of the bough of the tree, and right in front. So it kind of fills in. Sometimes you can see sky in between though. Okay. So nice and heavy with the gouache. Gouache, you can actually see it kind of bubbling up from the surface because of the extra stuff inside the talc. So the talc will sit above. It'll create a little bit of texture on your watercolor. Then we have, oops, it was a bit too stringy, and the little tiny ones, be careful not to cover all the green because it gets to because the gouache is really rather thick. Then I'm going to put, see, I've got a load of gouache. I'm going to roll it off. I'm going to roll my brush. So I'm going to roll my brush right in front of that green to create these little drifts. Okay. See the little drifts? Aren't they cute? And I'm going to get more and roll it toward that. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with my barn. So you're rolling toward the barn, not away from the barn. So you're rolling toward the barn, not away from the barn, because you're going to get pink otherwise. Okay. So I'm going toward the barn, pushing. I'm starting in the white, pushing toward the barn. I have 0 pink on my brush because I didn't touch the barn. I rolled the paint toward the barn. Okay, same with the roof. I'll show you again. Okay, so you see, I'm going to roll toward, I'm rolling this way, rolling toward the barn, and because it goes over top of the barn, and you've got all this beautiful heavy gouache. I'm picking up more gouache, starting in the sky. I touch the brush down to the sky and then go roll, and you're kind of rolling that paint off. You can even pull your brush along. And now I want to get, because it's a decoration, I can use that little bit of phthalo blue on the tip of my brush, the tiniest tip. See, I didn't dab, I just did a little dab. And that's a lot of paint. And I can get a little bit of shadows in my snow with that on the roof. And I can get a little bit of shadow. So we have shadows from inside the globe, because there's a lot. And then we have little shadows just to create, a little effect from the trees. I might even use my finger to smush that. Okay, simple. Then I'm going to take a little bit of that blue off. Where did I put that little paper towel? It fell on the floor and I don't know why. I just need a little bit of paper towel. And I'm going to just pull off that excess blue. And I'm going to put a little bit of snow in the bottom, in the windowsill. See, there's in the windowsill, and then above on the trim of the tractor where the cows and the tractors go in. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, and I'm putting a tiny bit of snow on the windowsill and on the lip of the barn door and on the lip of the milk, on the top of the milk house. Okay, easy peasy, easy peasy. And a little bit over here. Oops. Now I'm gonna get rid of the gouache off that. I just really want to wash. I don't always get to washing my brushes right away, but the gouache really dries thick on them, so I need to get that off. And I did want to just experiment, like play with this a little bit. Get that little hint of, I just wanted to, like, because I went a little bit overboard with the gouache. So I'm just using that brown. Oops. And that's going to create like a shadow on top of that. So I used a little bit of the dark brown. So we have this effect of the refraction and reflection. Then we're going to put the snow inside. So we're still working inside the globe. I got a little bit of a water staining effect there with my black. That's okay. I kind of like that. It's kind of soft gray. There is a reason why we didn't use gray, like white with the black, because white will also kill the black. We're not looking for gray. We're looking for a translucent black. So I am going to switch now to splatter mode. And we're going to use, I use a slightly watered down gouache for that. If you use white watercolor, it's going to be too translucent. You need the splatter to splatter. If it's too thick, it's not going to splatter. Okay. And we're going to use the bigger brush. So make sure your big brush is clean. Mine's clean. Might have some white gouache on it. And let me see. I'm gonna, Rhonda, you have questions. Always. Above or below? Yes. Take a sip of water whenever you say gouache. So this, like the imaginary line doesn't matter with the decoration inside. The imaginary line matters with the refraction. So whatever's inside can go above the imaginary line because it's independent. So that's what the snow globe, it is independent. So the decoration inside, this is the imaginary line. The tree went above the imaginary line. It also creates a different effect. But you can also see a difference in the light from the background into the inside of that imaginary line. So imaginary line is only with refraction. A decoration is not refraction. Refraction is when light goes through an object like clear glass. And that's what happens with refraction. Yes. So you also want to have varying heights with what's inside to make it interesting as well. So you don't want everything low down. You want, I have a snow globe with a big Santa and he sits up here. So, okay. Now, I have my big circle here, okay? So I've got my big circle I just showed you on a scrap piece of paper. You can tell it's scrap because it's all messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut one length into it and then cut around. This is just old paper. You don't need the circle because we're going to splatter inside the circle. Then what you're going to do, you could just give that a little tape or just leave it. It's fine. You can give that a little tape. I'm going to tape it just because I'm always awkward with these things here. Just going to get a little painter's tape. Where did I put my painter's tape? I have too much going on. Stuff going on here. Doesn't have to be painter's tape because this is just a scrap piece of paper. It's just that I have painter's tape handy because I'm using it all the time for these things. Okay. So I gave a little tape there. So basically we're going to use that as a guard against splatter. And you could, because mine goes awkward and I'm going to be lifting it up and down, I'm just going to give it an extra tape. If you're just flat, you don't need to give it an extra tape. So I am just going to give it a little corner tape here. Okay, so we got a little window, and I'm going to go low to splatter, and I'm going to cover my computer with paper towel. And I'm only working with the white gouache now. And I am going to bring you low down on the DL, and I am going to get my brush fairly loaded with fairly watery gouache. So fairly watery means like creamy, like heavy cream, So you can see and because you're going to get splatter from, I'm just topping off any excess huge amounts. Okay. And I'm going to start my splatter low down so I can judge what I'm doing. I'm going to keep my brush close and I'm going to pull my finger up. Pull my finger. And I'm just going to get, because somebody has to shake this snow globe. I can turn my brush around. Maybe I've got more there. But keep it low because otherwise you're going to get it all over. See, I went way over here. Keep it low. And we need to reload. Okay, the master of the splatter. And sometimes it's hard to master a good splatter. But I'm going to keep it low to start in case I get big gobs. And sometimes it'll go in a direction of which way the brush is pointing. You can also hit it against something. However, sometimes it's hard for people to control. They start tapping away, but You can get finer bits in there. I want more snow because somebody really shook this snow globe up really well. So I need to re-dip. And so you see how loaded this is. Right up to the edge of my paper. And switch, just turn my brush around because I had a lot on the other side too. And I want more snow. More snow. This is a snow globe. I don't know about you, but you got to get a good shake going on the snow globe. But keep it low, otherwise you go all over. It's really easy to go all over. Okay. And I think that looks good. I think. I really want to get more up against the edge, just to give it a good edge. There we go. And I think that's good. I'm going to keep, and you can see it is really opaque. Even when it's watery, it covers your finger. Pull my finger. Oh. And just going to dip my finger in some water to get rid of the heavy part of the gouache. Gouache, gouache, gouache. Oh my gosh, gouache. Remember Oshkosh? Do they still have Oshkosh? My kids were little. That was the creme de la creme, like the cute little Oshkosh overalls. Oshkosh, bagosh. And now the unveiling of the snow in the snow globe. So that's cute. You could go even crazier with the splatter. I just want it to reflect the light there. So it's on top of the refraction. Now we're not worried about we did the refraction. Now we have to do the reflection. Reflection is on the outside. We were working on the inside the whole time. The outside reflection of the circle is, and it's so light. So inside is refraction. The shadow, the glass itself creates the shadow, kind of like here. Okay, kind of like here. See how the tape is creating a shadow under here, and then the light is here. The actual glass itself creates that shadow. Then on top of that, so of course with the tape works. So we have the shadow under here, but then the reflection on top of the tape. So because it's curved, we have a curve ball going on. This is the very final stages. Okay. And so we have reflection, and the reflection of the light is up here. It's not on top of the curve. It is in here. So where's my big... Oh, I don't need it. So you see, here's like the circle. Okay. So the reflection can be like that, and it kind of curves around. You can also have it, and you can also kind of have like a little dot, but this isn't like a perfect square either. And it kind of curves around. Or you could, I like to sort of have a few gaps in it. But you see how it's following the same curve. Or you could literally, if this was the way you wanted it to go, you could do a reflection like that. It's not here. It's not at the top because the whole thing is rounded. So it's rounded into that top. So I'm going to use my gouache. I am going to use my smaller, like the number 10, just because I don't want to overdo this. So if I used my big brush, I would overdo it. And I want to make sure this is clean. So it is clean, and I want it fairly dry. My brush was fairly dry because I'm not looking. And so I'll show you on here. So I'm going to do like maybe about a little bit further away from the top because it rounds toward us. So the reflection is coming toward us. It follows that same, it follows the curve of the glass. So you see, and you'll see it better on here. And I'm going to do that. And then I might have it going to a point here, a point-ish. It doesn't have to go to a full point. It can skip a little. And here. It's hard to see because this is really pale, but you'll see it better on here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this here, loading my gouache pretty well because this is a reflection. So reflection, it's like that hint of white in your eye. It's very white. That's why you want to use gouache and not white watercolor. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go in with the curve of the top. Okay. And that's actually pretty good. I can just do that one brush stroke. Then I can do maybe another brush stroke kind of going this way, meeting up with that one. And they don't have to be the same size. Okay, they go a little, their reflection goes a bit narrow. You could even do a dot of a reflection here. Like you could do, like it skips a little and then like a dot of a reflection. But then you got to carry on the reflection over here. Maybe this is a bit bigger compared to that one. So they don't have to be exactly the same size. But they do kind of narrow out, kind of like a moon crescent. And they don't have to be perfectly squared off. So this one I did like a little narrow and then a little, kind of a little dot there. I'm just going to look at it for a second straight on to get a bit more gouache on top. So don't overdo this. That's the reflection now. And I'm going to try and make sure that autofocus is on there. Perfection. Perfection, reflection. Reflections are easy because you guys know how to do those because I've taught you guys many times. And I'm going to wash that gouache off my brush. Wash your gouache. Fun to say. All right. Thank you for sticking with me till the end. Yeah, and please like and share and subscribe. There's no cost for subscription to watercolors. And I lost a few people. Thank you, all the 4, for staying on until the end. The end is nigh. And the unveiling. If you did tape it down, which you don't need to, I never tape mine down. I never keep it flat. Then pull away from the paint. Especially if you're working with gouache, make sure that you take this off while it's wet. Gouache can be very sticky. So you can just see I'm pulling it away from there and I'm going slow. Because sometimes it can catch, the gum arabic can catch the paint and the paper itself and create, here we go. That was fun. And create a like a tear in your paper. But as you can tell with my prototypes, I never tape it down. So there's no taped edge. I just like to go right to the edge. So that was fun. And then the reflection looks really even nicer on top because you've got the black gray underneath. You can send tips to Paint with Janet. Yeah, because my YouTube page is not. Yes, paypal.me, Janet Beath. J is capitalized, B is capitalized, all one word. Thank you, Rhonda, because I don't get, I don't have this monetized YouTube channel. That's why I asked for more subscribers too. I need 1,000 subscribers to be able to monetize. I am also going to be working kind of over the holidays on putting these up in the videos section. Right now, they're still in the live section of my page. And people can also e-transfer me as well. It's the same PayPal account that you sent me for Zoom, Rhonda. The same PayPal one. Thank you. So I do accept tips. So thank you. And if you have a what am I saying? A CAD account, Canadian dollars, you can e-transfer me. So otherwise, PayPal does the conversion. So thank you. And yeah. So it's janet.beath@simpatico.ca. Don't forget the dot in there, .beath. PayPal does not have a dot. It just has a / paypal.me/Janet Beath. Thank you so much for thinking of that. Yes, and I have posted them in the past. I've been so mixed up going to YouTube, but I am going to post them as videos. But what you have to do is you have to, I'm just figuring out YouTube. You have because YouTube has categories. They have live, post, shorts, and then videos. So what people do with their live streams is you have to do some sort of, what am I saying? You have to do some sort of editing to then resave as a video. And so I'm going to just chop off, because when you're doing a live, you do the first bit and then you do the end bit. I don't need to have me chatting here. So I'll lop that off and then save it in videos. But if you wanted to see the full live stream, you could still see the live, I'm pretty sure. But I'm going to just experiment with the first one I did with the dragonflies. And that way I'll probably get more likes as well. Because when people go to your page, they don't think to look in the live section specifically. Because the videos kind of come up first. Plus I'm going to be doing some shorts as well. I've been swamped. And then I have to get ready for the holidays. So I have 2 more of these lined up. And they're actually lined up with the pictures in YouTube in the live section. So you can see what we're doing ahead of time. And there are 2 acrylics. And one of them is that darn truck, I think. Oh gosh, everybody wants to do that truck. Drives me crazy. I'm so tired of that truck. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. And take care, everyone. And toodles.